Hey Robert from Kontron, nice to see you.
Nice to have us here.
Yeah, the show's going well for you so far?
So far so good.
Yeah.
The start's always difficult, but it works.
Absolutely. There's a lot at stake here, isn't there? And there's a lot of things changing. And talking of change, I mean, I think Kontron's changed quite a lot over the last few years. I mean,
Sure.
I always associated you really with a hardware solutions company, but increasingly we live in a software world, don't we?
Sure.
So are you adapting to that model now?
Yes, we're delivering a lot of integrated software, hardware packages.
Yeah.
But we still find that in many cases, even though everything's virtualized, hardware doesn't matter, it actually still does matter in many, many cases. So I think our sweet spot is to find that those solutions where hardware does matter, but integrating software at both the OS, the virtualization layer, ready for the application if you want.
I mean, virtualization is obviously an incredibly important and exciting trend. I think some of the service providers that we talk to, they feel that it hasn't gone quite as smoothly as it might have done over the last, 5 or 6 years. What are you doing to help your customers virtualize their networks?
Well, two things. First of all, we work with a lot of players on the software side in the middle, especially in virtualization layer like OpenStack. Plus, we find that the biggest difficulty is really on the network side. Virtualizing the compute and the storage portion is easy. IT has been doing it for years.
Right.
The network is really the complication.
Yes.
And we're working with some partners to really attack that portion, that part of the problem, because we believe that's where the difficulties lie, and that's where the solutions lie as well.
Is there still a very strong appetite for virtualization from the service providers?
They have no choice,
because
they really everybody wants, the butter and the money from the butter, as we say in French. So they want to be able to benefit from separating hardware and software, negotiating those two packages separately rather than integrated together. But at the same time, then they bring the problem of making it all work together themselves. So.
What about edge computing? That's another really hot area right now, isn't it? It seems to be the new battlefield for how service providers are going to make money. It's also sort of a nexus of a lot of new and pretty complicated and challenging technology.
True.
Do you have a play in that space?
Absolutely. I mean, the faster and faster networks, and especially with 5G coming over, bring the latencies in the network into play. So if you make the edge faster, the core becomes slower, relatively speaking. So there's a big push for providers both to try to win over some of the over-the-top play by having a lot of performance closer to the edge, and also to overcome the slowness. So the network is, after going all central is going back towards the edge, which brings a lot of challenges because the edge is not a nice, smooth, easy to deal with environment like the core is.
Right. So. And it is interesting how there's this ebb and flow of the nascent intelligence in carrier and actually enterprise networks as well. I mean, do we centralize, do we distribute? And I guess at some point we end up doing a bit of both, don't we? So.
And I think as the network itself gets faster and faster, you get to have to decide where you're going to put which portion of the compute load and which workloads work best where.
Well, and things like video, you want to cache locally where possible, but for security reasons, there are other applications which you may want to house in a concrete bunker somewhere in your core network. Exactly.
And if you're talking to a digital assistant, you don't want him or her to wait for 3 minutes before coming back with an answer. So you want a lot of the throughput becomes very important at that point.
As a company which plays in all of these very significant spaces and is developing a lot of very interesting and partnering with a lot of interesting companies to develop this technology, you must come up against some really huge, traditional IT hardware competitors when you're selling. What's the differentiator of Kontron? What do you lead with in those competitive situations?
I think it's the ability to adapt the platforms to the workloads and the environment in which they run. So if somebody's buying pure IT and I've got the big names in front of me, it's a no-go for us. We know we go away. But if space constraints, if density constraints, if environmental constraints start to show up, then that's when it gets to the hardware does matter, or the ability to bring in more and more, to bring in adjunct processing, such as FPGAs and GPUs and AI type applications, these mix and match of processors also create a big challenge on the platform themselves.
Right. Now I hear that you've recently signed up for something called I think it's the Linux Networking Fund. Is that right? What is that?
So, as I said earlier, we think the network virtualization portion is one of the big showstoppers in deploying next generation networks. The holy grail is to be able to manage a network the way you manage compute and storage resources in an IT type network.
Yes.
And we strongly believe open source is going to be what's going to solve the problem, not proprietary solutions. So we are investing quite a lot in that direction.
Okay, cool. And what can we expect from you in the coming 12 months from Kontron before we meet here again next year?
We're going to be talking about network virtualization a lot more than we do today.
Yeah.
We're going to be a lot more network-centric than computer storage-centric than we are today. Definitely, network is going to be much more part of the conversation.
Fantastic. Robert, it's great to see you, and I'm very happy to hear that you're having a busy show. Good luck with everything.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.